Hello. I figured I would make one of these videos because I have to clear my head a little bit. I've been working on something complicated and it's stressing me out. As you can see from my unit test, I have broken my game by changing physics once again. The issue that I was having was that airflow was working unreliably, and I'll show you why. Pause it as well. I've created this room, which is one of the most complex rooms that I've made, to test how airflow works. And that's because I'm working on force. I want it so that when there is a breach in the hull and the air pressure within the vessel is far exceeding the non existent air pressure outside, things get sucked out into it. And as I was figuring out how to do this, I determined that uh, I was doing things wrong because what I was doing was when the empty space actually has a function attached to it called a pipe, and I'll show you what I mean. Go to the space on the right hand side. There is a second mono behavior under space called the pipe, and that's actually what handles the airflow. It just so happens that the jar has visual representations of things like fluids and stuff attached to it, and the space kind of manages the interactions between the jar and the visualization of the jar and the pipe, which handles airflow. And I've named it pipe because I was working on actual piping, like a pipe, a pipe. And I was thinking, this is the exact same logic that I would use with air, like the tiles adjacent to one another. So what I should do is refactor this so that the actual open space uses the exact same code as pipes will use, and I'll just have them be different circuits so that a pipe blade is its own network of pipes, and the tile space with the open air is a separate network of pipes that connect to one another. So I did that, and then I updated the way that the script works so that the tile, like this tile, would interact with this tile, this tile, this tile, and this tile every update, and find an equilibrium of both liquids and gases on all five at once. And this was actually quite shit, despite all my hard work to make that function correctly. There were weird issues where the air tiles would fight one another for the same gas, and it would end up basically hermetically sealing this exit and causing very, very slow air leakage. So I've gone back to an earlier idea I had for how tiles should equalize one another, and now it's much quicker per call, and it's greedier. So, for instance, this tile recognizes, I believe it's going to be this one. Nope, I'm wrong. This one? Nope. This one. There we go. Recognizes that space, which is a vacuum, as being its neighbor. And that tile recognizes it has no floor, so it empties the jar of everything that has every update. So it always stays empty. Any matter that enters, any dynamic chemical matter that enters the tile is immediately destroyed. And that way, it always has a gas pressure of 0, and the leaking tile exchanges with it and basically empties out the contents of the ship very quickly because it's rapidly dumping its contents into this vacant space, which is permanently vacant. But what it does is it checks all of its neighbors, and it tries to find ones that have a gas pressure or a liquid volume higher than its own, and then it exchanges only with those in order of volume. So if this tile has a ton of volume and this tile just has more, it'll equalize with this one first, these two, and then it will see if it's still below this other tile, and then it would equalize with that. And because it works like that, it's much faster, and it creates a better, more realistic flow of fluids in the vessel, and it empties out. So I'm going to have to change that further so I can determine how much force is being applied to items based on the flow of gases and eventually liquids, because liquids carry a lot more weight than gases. But even this guy standing right here, would probably be sucked out very quickly by the hull breach. So if I go ahead and I unpause it, I want to show that usually there's 120 matter in every space, because that's about atmospheric. And as it stands right here, it's interacting rapidly with its neighbors, and it's going down. This tile has a lot less, and you see it goes up and down because it's emptying out to its neighbor and then pulling in more from its surroundings. And that ball just took off because it got sucked in towards it, which is my my little test with the idea of force, which isn't working too well, but it'll get better. So if I checked out this room, for instance, this should be below 120. It's not. That's what I mean. It's very frustrating. I work very hard to get it working. It just doesn't. Over here, it's a little bit better. Part of the reason why is that I've reduced the actual amount of time, the number of times it hits and decides to calculate pressure, because it was getting very slow. When you had a big room of gas that was constantly interacting, it got slow. I'll show you, I changed it a little bit so that it kind of acts more spontaneous with how it updates. It looked too uniform before, now it's a little bit more random. So if I explode the character, oh god, you can see it fills out the hallways quite nicely in a little bit more of a realistic way, just because it's more random. Each tile has a frame that it will update on every second, so it's not always the most obvious order, which probably has pros and cons. If I go ahead and I change that so that it always updates every frame, it'll drop the frame rate horrifically because there's so much going on. But the simulation's obviously a lot faster. So now we're down to 10 frames per second as opposed to 70 before. Ball's going to fly off really fucking fast because of the change. But then if I go to space, yeah, it's losing air a lot faster. But it's still not fast enough, and that's what's frustrating. And it makes me wonder at this point, is my math terribly wrong, or is it terribly right? And losing a tile to the vacuum of space, not as dramatic as I would expect from science fiction. And that's the question, and I'm going to have to try and figure it out, because I'm unhappy with the results, and I don't know if it's because I've got it wrong, or if because my expectations are different from reality. But I do want to explode my character again. Oh no! Come back here, ball. No! My suicide ball is being uncooperative. I'm going to reduce the rate again so it'll stay put. I had something really cool last time where my brain, now it's just escaping the environment. That's no good. But you see it? The lungs. The force of the air exchanges is affecting the lungs. It's trying to escape. But it was caught in the corner when I was testing it the first time, like right there. And the brain was just helplessly hovering, suspended in air, and I thought that was very funny. But yeah, that is the update. You can see the blood still nice, trickling through the complex maze that I built. I'm not too happy with how it's working right now, and I'm deciding what I want to do to get that force working like I want it to, because that's a big deal. You need shit to get sucked out into space. That's the fun part. You take something you don't like, you bring it to the airlocks, and you throw it out, and you wave goodbye as it drifts off forever. But thank you for watching the 9th update of Breathing Simulator, which is very far away from breathing at this point.